Check one, two, three. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. All right, my guest today is a production sound mixer, producer, director, author, and so much more. He's based out of Los Angeles, California. Please welcome Jay Menez.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Now, Jay, we always kind of start the show off by asking, when you're mixing on set, what's in your audio kit? So tell us about your mics, your mixer, power distro, and everything in between.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I love this part because I'm a gearhead. And I like talking about my gear. So I guess the main part of my kit is a Sound Devices 688. I had the 664 and the 633 also in the past. That's a unit I really love. As far as wireless goes, I use the Lectrosonics SRCs, 3 SRCs, dual receivers, and then the SMWBs for the transmitters. And SSM, which is a little micro transmitter, which is really great for hiding it in talent. And the battery lasts a heck of a long time. So I'm really happy with that. I have I think it's an SL6, the backpack that goes on the 688, which does it really takes place of all that cabling in there so that there's really no cabling. And it has a slot for an NP1 battery. And that has really cleaned up my kit a lot. So there are essentially no wires back there. And then as far as the boom gear goes, I have a K-Tech 10, 12-foot carbon boom. I use mainly the 416 outside, Sennheiser MKH-416, and then the MKH-50 for my indoor stuff. And those have proven pretty bulletproof to me. I know there's some other mics out there that crisper and in some situations may sound better, but those are really my desert island mics right there. Between those two, I get everything done, never had a complaint, and they've just been solid workhorses for me.
Nice. And what kind of lav mics do you like to use?
Oh, COS-11s all the way. I've got about half a dozen of those things. Yeah, they're just really clean. I've played with the Countrymen's and the DPAs, but I just think overall for me, I really like the Sankens.
All right. What kind of timecode boxes do you like to use?
Goodness, timecode boxes. I had locket boxes for a bit, the ambient locket boxes. They're really big and bulky. So when those tentacles came out, and I think those came out on like a Kickstarter campaign or something, I don't remember, but I invested in those things. I got 3 of those. And then just recently, over the past 6 months, I upgraded to the Betso timecode boxes that have all the wireless built in, so they talk to each other. And those are really nice because usually I'm running this multicam setup in the studio, whether it's my studio or some of the other sets that I work on. And so just being able to, plug in the transmitter, the master of that Betso timecode box, and it jam and then automatically jam all the other cameras just saves a bunch of time.
All right. Now, what's your favorite headphones?
I would have to say the ones I'm wearing right here. The Sennheiser, I think they're HD25 2s, Mark 2s. Yeah, they're great. And the reason I like them, well, 1, they're flat, and 2, it's got this thing where you can just twist the, one ear cup up so that you could actually hear out of that ear. And then lightweight. Yeah, I don't really like the headphones that cover your ear completely because I still like situational awareness.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the projects you've worked on. I was going through your IMDb, and you worked on an adventure comedy called The Head Thieves. So what did you do on that film?
The Head Thieves. Oh, wow. You know, I got to tell you, Michael, that's probably one of my most favorite projects that I've ever worked on. It was low budget, but it was really the product of a bunch of friends getting together and saying, let's make this feature film. We're going to make it happen. There was a little bit of budget, so we didn't all work free, but this is a kind of a dark comedy. And our executive producer was actually the lead actor. And he's really good. You know, a lot of times you get into those situations where the investor wants to become the lead, and it just turns out to be a disaster because they're not really an actor. They just have a lot of money. But in this case, our lead in that, Mickey Gooch, was, and also the financier, just a hilarious actor, very talented, and a lot of fun to be around. And then what had happened is our director, Mike Hermosa, he wanted to shoot this thing up in Modesto, where he grew up. And so we went up there, and we ended up setting up trailers in his mom's backyard, you know, right in the middle of a cow field. And for 2 weeks, everybody lived together, the whole cast and crew. And, you know, we got up together. Our call times weren't really that tight. We get up when we got up. You know, Mike's mom would go make us food, and we go in the house, shower up, eat, and then, you know, and then get on with our day. And it was really a very collaborative effort. There's no drama, just a lot of fun. There are three main actors. There's Mickey, and then the other two were the Basco brothers. It was Dante and Dion Basco. And they really brought a special element to it. They're both great actors, great comedic timing. Dante was a guy that I've known for a while. He's best known as Rufio from the movie Hook with Steven Spielberg and Robin Williams. And so that's kind of where he made a name for himself, and he's just been working solidly ever since.
So what was kind of the setup on that? You know, technically, what was the setup on that?
You know, that was back then, I think I was using my 664, and I was carrying it around all day. There's very little on that movie. It was always in a car. They were always moving. Then we were in almond orchards. We're just all over the place. So there wasn't very much opportunity to just sit there and operate from a cart. So most of that was done over my shoulder. And like I said, moving around at night, all these different situations, it was tough at times. I did have a boom op with me. It was kind of my boom / utility. So that took a lot of that off of me.
So were you miking up a lot of people at one time?
There was really, 99% of the time I was miking up only the three main actors, and that was it. There would be plant mics. Of course, there was other characters coming and going, and it was very lively, much like reality, really, because there was so much improv in it. Michael, the director, really let these guys bring out their talents and add their own flair to the scenes. And overall, I think it just made it a better movie that way. And so I really had to approach it like it was reality because, sometimes you get these spontaneous, hilarious moments. It's just too hard to recreate with the same energy.
Okay. So you also worked on a show called Impact Theory as the production sound mixer. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Impact Theory is a show that I still work on. It's a fantastic show. It's actually the second generation of a talk show that was originally called Inside Quest. It's a talk show hosted by Tom Bilyeu, who's one of the founders of Quest Nutrition. And he and his partners had built it to $1 billion company in less than 5 years and became one of the fastest growing companies in Inc. 500. And it's an amazing accomplishment. But when he built Quest, it was this mission to heal our bodies with nutritious food for people on the go, athletes, entrepreneurs, that sort of thing. And then I think that after he had felt that he had accomplished that mission, he really wanted to dive into mindset and healing the way we think and instilling healthy mental habits in people. So he created Inside Quest, the predecessor to Impact Theory. And this is where he interviews thought leaders, billionaires, CEOs, authors, academics across all kinds of industries about what sort of attitudes and beliefs drive their success. And I have this personal interest in those sort of subjects and personal development. And I found the guests personally very fascinating. And so every time I would go there and record an episode, which are about an hour long, I'm just glued to the thing, just listening to the content. And then I'm able to take that same content and listen to it back. And I would furiously take notes. When he separated from Quest Nutrition, he restarted the show as Impact Theory and created a studio in his house. And so, of course, I went over with him on that project. And goodness, I think we were about 2 years in on Inside Quest. And then it's been 2 years already on Impact Theory.
Okay, so that's an ongoing client that you have.
Yeah. And really, those are the sort of clients that I want right now. I'm, going back, I really got into sound originally wanting to become a director and producer. But I quickly found out that you have to understand the technical aspects of production in order to be an effective manager, i.e. director, producer. I just think there's too many people in those spots that don't understand this technical part, and it handicaps them. But when you can understand the capabilities and the budgets and really what goes into a production, especially when you're on a limited budget, it makes it so much easier for everybody. For example, sometimes I get hired for a small indie thing that's a lower budget, and they tell me, we can only give you $250, but we want, 6 wireless and yeah, all kinds of stuff that, they cost me $90 a day to rent. It's just impossible, and they don't understand why. And then especially when they tell me that they don't have any budget for sound because they're hiring some guy with a Red or Alexa for their YouTube video. And they've got to pay him $1,500. There's a little bit of a disconnect, and they don't understand how important the sound element is.
Now, speaking of sound, you need to tell the listeners, what are we hearing in the background there?
Oh, yeah. As I talked about, I've got a puppy dog that is not feeling very well, so I brought her up to the studio, and she's sitting in the chair next to me. And I guess when she gets in that deep sleep, she starts snoring.
Just so everybody knows what we're hearing, like, what is that noise?
Right.
Like you said, you weren't always in the film industry, so you actually began your career as a police officer, correct?
Yeah, it's been a long road. And back then I would have never thought I would end up in Hollywood, I'll tell you that, much less in front of the camera, which is where I find myself these days. But yeah, I mean, if you want to go way back, when I was in high school, I volunteered at the local fire department. And I grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, and they actually still had volunteer fire departments back then. And when I graduated from high school, I ended up at the community college where I took courses as an EMT and eventually became a paramedic. And that was great for a while, but then I would notice these police officers would come into the station and tell us these cool stories about car chases and, going to the range and shooting their gun. And I just thought it was so cool. And made friends with a lot of these guys. So when a testing group came up, they said, hey, why don't you go test and try out, see if you can get in. So I did that, and I made it in. So I became a police officer and rotated through a bunch of departments there, mostly as a patrol officer, but I worked some time on vice narcotics and auto thefts. I was a field training officer later in that short 5-year career, and trained a couple of rookies coming out of the academy. And it was great. And had I stayed longer, I really wanted to be a canine officer and or a motorcycle cop because, I want to be that chips guy.
That's right.
That would have been a lot of fun. But I left the police department after 5 years. I went back to school, and I ended up in law school. And then from law school, you would expect that I'd want to go into criminal law, but really coming out of law school, going the criminal track, you're either a prosecutor or you're a defense attorney. And prosecutors didn't make much money, and I was really into making money back then. And so I shifted into corporate work, and I ended up in investment banking on Wall Street, doing public offerings. And at the time, the internet was taking off, so there were a lot of these dot-coms until the dot-com bubble busted. And so I left that sort of banking, the initial public offering world, and went into real estate finance. Got a California real estate broker license and started selling real estate, doing commercial mortgages. Then about 10 years ago, the real estate market crashed. And I thought to myself, wow, okay, I made all this money. I was down in Orange County at the time. I could rebuild again in this industry in finance, but I felt that was a been there, done that thing. And in that whole journey, I still felt that something was missing. So I made the conscious decision to shift my attention to something more creative. I want to be a storyteller and impact people. I was thinking about legacy more about that time. So that's what brought me to Hollywood. And I wanted to direct and produce and be, a big director and tell these big stories. But like I'd mentioned, I found out that it would really be better if I would start from the bottom. Well, let me back up on that. I had this friend I say he's Hollywood royalty because he's a third generation filmmaker and very well-known guy. And he was kind of a mentor to me. And he told me that really to be a better director and producer, to learn the technical aspects, all the below the line stuff, whether that's screenwriting or art department, lighting, all the electrical work, cinematography, sound, all that. It would make you a much better manager. And so I took that to heart. And the tough part was learning to be a beginner again at the end of the day, because coming from where I was, this big house in Orange County, a garage full of exotic cars, to working for minimum wage or less on a set as a PA. I mean, it was very humbling. But I think that by this time I'd reinvented my career so many times that I kind of mastered the mindset required to be able to do that. And so, I continued to seek out mentors and people that would help me and help me get jobs and just fine-tune my craft. And I ended up hitting a lot of these departments. And cinematography and sound I really loved because I'm a gearhead and I liked all the buttons and just buying new gear and checking it out and trying it out and just having that kind of table talk with other camera guys and sound guys. I don't know why, but it really jazzed me up. So
now that you're directing and producing, how has your sound mixing experience kind of shaped how you direct?
That's a good question. If anything, the way it affects the way I operate as a manager, as a director or producer is I really try to give the sound people and as well as the other trades the respect and the latitude to do their jobs that they're due. Early on in my filmmaking career, I was on the other end of that where, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this could probably relate to this, where the camera guys, everything was so focused on the camera work and it was almost like sound was like an afterthought. Sometimes you get on a set and you can't really go near it to set up anything or to prepare. The camera department would be in there. They take up all the time. They're calling talent on set. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, sound guy, you can get in there and, set up your gear. You got like 2 minutes. And then talent's there waiting. And it's like, yeah, waiting on sound. It's great. Thanks, guys. You just let me in here. So, and, on the bigger, more professional sets, you didn't see that as much because they knew kind of what was going on. But when it came to the newer filmmakers, the indies they're low budget, which is the world I was in, not having been to film school or anything, I was having to deal with a lot of that stuff. And I realized a lot of these people were learning. So, you try to cut them a little break, but still sometimes that irked you.
Now, having been there, are you tough on your sound department?
Well, just like any other department, I just want them to do their job and do it in a professional way. I wouldn't say I'm tough as far as, I'm not cracking the whip. The key is I try to hire right in the beginning so that I don't have those problems. And that's worked out pretty well for me.
Now, when you were working sound on set, what was your worst on-set experience? You don't have to give any names, but if you could tell a scenario.
Early on, there would be minor mishaps, forgetting to roll sound on a take that I did early on. That's really embarrassing. That really didn't result in any big blow-ups or anything like that. We just did the takeover again. I just tried to stay focused on the job, and if something happens, then you just roll through it. You have to have a certain figure-outableness about what you're doing and make the best of the situation.
Now, did you ever forget any audio gear when you were going to set?
I've forgotten batteries before. That's kind of a disaster, but that's when you slide a little money over to the PA. Can you go grab me some batteries real quick? But yeah, really nothing. I think I'm fortunate, Michael, that I haven't had anything really bad happen on set. I knock on wood here.
All right. Now, in your early years in doing audio, did you do your taxes yourself? Did you have a CPA? When it came to freelance and juggling expendables and all sorts of things, do you have any tips on that or your approach?
The best thing that I did for myself was I got a QuickBooks subscription. I use QuickBooks online and try to keep on, when checks come in or invoices go out or expenses, at least once a week. I try to just stay on top of that so that when tax time comes, it's really just sharing the file or printing a report and sending it over to your tax guy. And it just really simplifies everything. So I think that's the best advice that I could give there. And then he would help me with as far as equipment and supplies purchases and, kind of where I stand coming up to the end of the year so that I can plan accordingly.
All right. Now, when it comes to miking up talent, do you have any specific expendables that you like to use?
I use a lot of double stick and moleskin. There were these little clips that I used one time. They were like the smooth plastic clips that you could stick your mic into that I use for hiding mics a lot that seem to be pretty effective. I don't remember what they're called, though.
Was that the RM11s for the COS-11 mics?
Yeah, no, those are the things that come with the COS-11s, but no, it's not those. Those I used a lot. In fact, on that Head Thieves movie, I think I probably used those almost exclusively. But then I found these other things, and they were more of a smooth plastic so that when they did rub on clothes or something, there's no friction that that would cause a rubbing sound. And I was just really impressed with those things. And I still use them today on the talk show, although on the show, I don't hide the mics usually. Usually it's just for backup mics or something else. A lot of times on these shows, with social media and everything, the guests come in with their own video team that are like filming behind the scenes, and they've got all their mic stuff working also. I always worried about the quality of their transmitters and that causing RF interference with my gear. But that's a consideration these days. I see it more and more.
All right. Well, let's change gears a little bit here. And you've written a book. So tell us about your book.
Well, thanks for asking. It has nothing to do with sound, but more mindset. As I had mentioned, I've really been into personal development and like to study people who, guys like Tony Robbins and John Gray and these great authors and thought leaders and neuroscientists who talk about what healthy attitudes and beliefs are, what mindsets drive success. And in a decade of talking to these people, using them as virtual mentors, i.e., watching their videos and reading their books and just watching what they have online, as well as talking to them in person, and people that I've met on set and just in other settings, been able to interact with, I discovered, and this isn't an original discovery, but through that I discovered for myself that really the key to success is getting your mindset straight first. I would say that life mastery begins with mind mastery. And this is a message. I guess it's kind of a through line in everything that I do right now, whether it's the things that I write, the movie projects that I go after, the jobs that I accept, and even my show that I do now. Everything revolves around this idea of mindset. It's really kind of been that driving force in what I want to do and what I want my mission to be, and what I want to be remembered for going forward.
How would, say, some of the mindset principles in your book, how could that be applied to those in the production sound world?
All these mindset, everything that I talk about in the book and otherwise is really universal to all kinds of success in any endeavor. And if you want to talk about that specifically to the production world, I talk about things like a mission mindset and an action mindset, which really goes to setting intention, acting with intention. If you want to be a director, or if you want to be the best sound guy there is out there, or cinematographer, or whatever, what I teach says, set that intention and make that the focus. And, as you go through your work life, anything that doesn't forward that intention, then you exclude. Of course, not including family and your personal life, but as far as, professional opportunities will come around. And like a lot of people, I get bombarded with that all the time. But I use these mindsets and more specifically this intention of mission to be a filter for these opportunities that come in. And I ask myself, okay, there's this opportunity. Will this opportunity move me towards my goal or not? Or is it just a distraction? And so it makes it very easy. If the answer is it doesn't actually move me forward towards my goal, then it's excluded. But if it does, then it's something to consider. And then the action mindset, it says that it's about taking ownership and responsibility for things that happen in your life. Meaning, it's one thing to set an intention, but then you have to take action on it. You have to put these things in motion. They say that when opportunity comes, you have to be prepared. And that this action is that preparation part for it. Because if you don't help yourself, nobody else is going to help you. The universe, unlike some, woo-woo stuff I've heard out there, you're not just going to get handed success. You have to take an action towards something, and then the opportunities will come. There's a lot of things. My book is called Spark: The 8 Mental Habits of Highly Successful People. So I lay out 8 mental habits or mindset principles to follow. Do you want me to tell you what those are?
Yeah, go down the line.
I'll just list. I won't go too deeply in here because it's really getting off topic for a location sound podcast. But I just think it's very important. So the first one is, like I mentioned, a mission mindset. Intention has to do with intention. Secondly is an action mindset, which is about taking responsibility. This is anti-entitlement. And it's taking extreme responsibility for everything that happens in your life. Number 3 is a mindset of creativity. This is developing the confidence to know that you can handle any unknown situation that comes your way. It's that sense of figure-outableness that allows you to go into unknown situations and not freak out. We all have this innate intuition that guides us in this way. And so when you can learn to trust that more, then you will have developed this mindset of creativity. Fourth is a connection mindset. And this has to do with empathy and authenticity and, most importantly, presence when you're talking to other people. This is very important as a manager, and also if you're trying to get jobs. We're oftentimes when we try to connect with other people, we're so distracted by other things. I'm sure you've experienced, especially, these days you're having a conversation with somebody and they're checking their phone or something like that. And it's not right. As long as you're in front of somebody, I know we're all busy and everything, but you really should try to stay present with that person. And when you can do that, it really makes a big difference, especially today, because 90% of the people don't do it. And so 90% of people don't feel heard by the other person. So connection is number 4. That's very important. Number 5 is the mindset of abundance versus scarcity. This is the idea that there is an abundance of opportunity for everyone. So you don't have to worry about competing with other sound mixers for a job. You don't have to worry about, anything else that's going on. All you have to worry about is doing your job to the best of your ability, creating value, and serving the project in the best way possible. If you can do that, then you will find that more opportunities for jobs will come your way. And I firmly believe that. Number 6 would be the growth mindset. This is probably one of the most important to me. The growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. The growth mindset is the idea that we can accomplish anything that we dream of, anything that we're willing to work hard enough for, regardless of our past circumstances. Meaning, I don't care if you grew up in the ghetto. I don't care if you don't have a high school education. I don't care if you spent time in jail. What's important is where you are today and where you're moving forward. Too many people have limiting beliefs around that. They say, oh, well, look where I came from. Look who my parents are. I can never be a doctor. Or I'm too old to start over in the film industry and become a director or a sound guy or whatever you want to do. And all it takes is a belief that you can actually do it. But it takes work. And oftentimes it takes a bit of humility to be able to set aside kind of your ego and be willing to learn. And you can do anything that you want. That's a core part of my message. Number 7 is a mindset of generosity. This is, at its core, it's about kindness and just being a good person to your fellow man. And it's about charity and giving without expectation of receiving anything back. Because I believe that when you can let go of what you get back in return, then things come full circle. It may not be that person that you've helped out that is able to do something for you, but it's, the universe works in this funny way where it will come back and, hit you from behind, and you're going to go, wow, where'd that opportunity come from? This thing just landed in my lap and I didn't do anything. Well, maybe you did do something and you're getting rewarded for it. So that's very important. And then finally, number 8 is the mindset of gratitude. We in the Western world are so fortunate to be where we are. You hear about people, they lose their job or they lose all their money and they want to go kill themselves or something because they're so depressed. To me, if you live in this country, you have nothing to be that upset about that you're going to go kill yourself. I mean, there's millions of people in the world that are starving, that are sleeping on the ground in the middle of the desert or in some jungle or something, that have far less than we do. And funny enough, a lot of them are happy because they're grateful for what they have. They have family, they have people around them, they have their basic needs. It's when we start comparing ourselves with other people and what other people have, or what we're lacking in comparison to other people, that tends to make us unhappy. But happiness is a choice. You can choose to be happy at any time. And when you understand that, you can't be depressed about anything, because gratitude is an emotion that when you have it, it excludes all these other negative emotions. They just can't exist.
Thank you for sharing all the different pieces there, though. So the name of the book is called Spark, The 8 Mental Habits of Highly Successful People.
That's right.
And now where can we find that book?
It's available on Amazon. That's probably the best way to do it. there's a direct link. If you go to my website, jmenez.com/spark, it will take you to the Amazon site. Very soon, I hope to have an audiobook version of it out, because that's a lot of people have been asking about that, because it's easier to consume, much like podcasts. You don't have to dedicate yourself to sitting in front of a book. You can just listen to it and multitask at the same time.
Yeah, we love that. We always ask the question, too, if some of our listeners wanted to get into location sound, what would you recommend they do? And since you've kind of done multiple roles in the film industry, what would you tell young sound mixers or young sound professionals trying to get started?
As somebody who has reinvented themselves multiple times, I consider myself kind of that I'm pretty good at going into new industries. And so whether you're reinventing your career and you're in your midlife, or you're straight out of school and 20 years old and want to get into it, it's really the same thing that I tell everybody. And that is, I'm a big believer in mentorship. And that means, one, virtual mentorship, which is there's so many resources online, many of them free, that you can learn about your craft and practice, and YouTube videos and resources like this show, where you can get educational information and also get inspired and benefit from the advice that you hear on things like this. I was lucky to be able to connect with some more seasoned sound mixers that would allow me to tag along with them and early on and kind of look over the shoulder. Now, in this process, you have to be willing to work for free. Now, I understand a lot of people, you can't work that much for free, because, some people move out here and they want to work and get into the business, but they got to pay their bills. But you really have to look at it as, short of film school, where if you want to learn, you have to pay them gobs of money. If you're lucky enough to find a mentor that will take you under their wing and show you the ropes and not charge you for it, you've got to look at the situation as basically free education. They're not paying you, sure, but you're getting all this value. The value is probably worth tons more than what they would pay you. Now, the next question, though, is how do I find a mentor willing to spend that time with me? Because I get a lot of people, whether it's film production or other sorts of coaching, I always get people reaching out to me and they want me to mentor them and give them advice or just spend time with them on the phone. And honestly, I try to do as much of that as I can at no charge, but still I can't do a whole lot of that because I've got other things going on. So, and I imagine that when you reach out to another sound mixer, somebody more seasoned that you may want to learn from, they too are going to have other obligations. So the key is to create a value for value proposition. So find out what this individual, especially if they're on social media, it's very easy to find out what their interests are, what they like, and approach them with a value proposition. As in, don't ask them, especially cold, don't walk up to people or DM people asking for something, i.e., will you mentor me? That's the wrong way to go about it, because you'll probably get a no most of the times, I imagine. But if you come into it and offer some value up front, well, I know that this is what you need, or I suspect this is what you need, and I can help you in that department. And in exchange, maybe you could show me a few things. That's a much better way to go about it. I know that for me, social media has always been a challenge. So when somebody comes up to me and says, I can do your social media graphics, or I can help you get traffic, or just somebody who's sharing my content and liking and commenting and getting the word out there, that's tremendous value to me. And I'm more likely to respond in a positive way to that person. So mentorship is a very powerful way to get started. And also, you'll meet people and get opportunities for other jobs too.
All right. Well, Jay, as we kind of start to wrap things up, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The best way is really my website is the hub of everything that I do, jmenez.com. JayMenez.com. And then on social media, I'm at the Jay Menez.
Well, Jay, I want to say thanks to Jay Menez for being on the show today.
Well, thanks to you, Michael. I appreciate you having me on, and it's an honor.
Thank you so much. And a big thanks to all of our listeners out there. If you'd like us to discuss a particular topic, please send us an email at locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. We would love for you to subscribe and leave us a comment. We're available on Apple Podcast, and for Android users, check out Google Podcast. Also, we're on Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.